Liam, how excited are you heading into the All-Ireland final, the build-up the next couple of weeks, heading into the Cork game?
Yeah, Shane, it's a great place to be in Tipp at the moment. I suppose it's challenging, but it's brilliant to be in the position of leading into both a senior and under-20 All-Ireland, and I suppose we'd have worse to be complaining about if we weren't in it. So it's great, but it is challenging, and there is a lot of hype around and a lot of excitement, and we just hope everything goes to plan over the next couple of weeks.
And is that the main thing, like hype, is that in terms of like the public coming up talking to the players all the time saying, geez, you're flying it, you're after winning the Munster, you're going to win the All-Ireland?
It is, yeah. It's a case of that, and I suppose I've said it earlier to a couple of people. It's from my perspective, with the under-20 group I have, it's brilliant for them, even though it's challenging, because it's part of their development and their experience to be able to deal with that. Because if these fellas are as good as I think they are, and they do train on to play senior, it'll give them a great base for when, please God, they'll find themselves in a similar situation at senior level. So, we try our best, both Mikey and I and the boys inside, to develop them as best we can, hurling wise and skill wise. But like weeks like this week and next week and the next couple of weeks are a different challenge and a different way of developing them in other aspects. So it's great. It's all good.
Have you experienced the final quite like that finale against Cork, where played well enough for a lot of the game? It felt like it was very frenetic, just anything was happening, and then they go 2 points up and then you steal it with a last second goal.
Yeah, it was fairly frantic, but these two teams, Shane, we've met at minor in 2017, we meet again in a Munster final 2 weeks ago, and we meet again obviously in the All-Ireland final in 3 weeks time. But all of them games have been frantic. They've been good hurling games, and I think everybody I have met, you don't get to obviously enjoy it as much as you would as a person in the stand when you would on the line as a manager or a coach, but anyone you'd meet after the matches would always have nothing to say, only that it was a great game of hurling, both 2 years ago and this year. So I expect the final to be something very, very similar, please God, and that if both teams bring what they're capable of, it should be all of that, as you said, frantic and fast and a good spectacle for everybody.
If you throw back to last year as well, losing that Munster final at under-21 level, it's changed to under-20 now, losing that by 13 points, you really must have drawn a line in the sand to be where you are now. And I know there's a huge turnover of players, with guys getting older, plus losing a year in terms of under-20.
Yeah, it's it was a strange year last year, I suppose. Like, we didn't really do ourselves justice in the Munster final. Now Cork were awesome that night, in fairness, they absolutely destroyed us. But I think it was a combination of both players and management and support that's around the setup that we had, that dragged us up by the court to get through a semi-final against Galway first, and then obviously into the All-Ireland. I had plenty to work on from a managing point of view and a motivational point of view, because of the errors and mistakes we've made, and the real, I suppose, lack of I suppose intensity on the night, and really the disappointment on the Tipperary people that travelled to Cork that night was immense. So we had a lot to cling to motivate us. 3 weeks time is totally different. Two teams that know one another really well. Munster final, that was marginal. Different scenario, albeit that the shoe is on the other foot with us going in as champions and Cork going in last year as champions, So it's very much a 50-50 game, really. That's the point.
It's just interesting what you're saying there about the fallout from the Munster final last year, the disappointment. From watching the semi-final against Galway and the final, it seemed like just the intensity level went through the roof. Robert Byrne went in centre back and seemed to be protecting the full back line quite well. From your point of view, like, how much soul searching went on, and like even asking the players to do the same? What went on?
Well, I think really, Shane, it was a case of soul searching is right, and it wasn't all down to the players. We had to soul search ourselves as a management team. We got a lot of things wrong that night in Cork, positionally. Not too sure maybe our run up into it. We didn't get a run out in Páirc Uí Chaoimh either, I suppose, to get a feel for it. That I would put that blame down to myself in that respects. And I suppose we probably thrown caution to the wind and gave players that deserved their chance in the semi-final and threw everything at it, and they responded. There were probably players that felt they were hard done by, but as it turned out and as the year progressed, they actually won the jersey the right way, and when they won it and held on to it. And I suppose really it was a case of both players and management coming together admitting where things needed to improve and putting the proper structures in place for that to happen.
So this will be a fourth final in the space of a year and a half, where yourself and Dennis Ring will come head to head. You must know him fairly well at this stage.
Yeah, Dennis is a really passionate hurling man. The people in Cork will tell you that he's immersed in underage hurling in Cork and has been for years. And he's he's like ourselves. He does it for the good of seeing players develop. And it's been brilliant. It just happens that we're very fortunate, both Dennis and I, that we have great squads at our disposal over the last number of years. And in this particular saga, it's 1-1 in my head. So this final will decide, I suppose, where the laurels will lie at the end. So.
And will it be another 8 goals like it was against Wexford? I'm sure it won't.
No, but look, finals take a life of their own. You just don't know what will happen. Jeez, I hope if there's 8 goals, I hope they're not leaked at our end. That's number one. But I can't see that happening. I can see goals coming, all right, but I can't see 8 of them for any one particular team. But having said that, I think it'll be high scoring, and please God, it'll be everything that the Munster final was and more.
So, having come from last year where you were managing a team at under-21 level and now under-20, how easy do you think it is going to be for players to step up now that they've lost an extra year of the development age, we'll say?
Yeah.
And of course, within that, Jerome Cahill and Jake Morris are getting a bit of game time this year.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's lots of talk around Croke Park and the GA changing it back to just one age group at under-19, which for me I would think from an underage managing and coaching perspective would be a disaster, because you've said it there yourself, Shane, the step up takes time now. A lot of these fellas will take from under-21 level, even seed in our own senior squad at the moment, they're taking that a little bit longer. They didn't come through straight away. So if you go back to under-19, you're going to miss a number of years again where these fellas are going to fall through the net, and maybe a late developer is going to be missed out on. Again, unless you're an exceptional underage player like the likes of a Kyle Hayes or a Jake Morris or somebody, a Peter Casey, or fellas that you can fast forward through, it doesn't happen too often that these players step up automatically. So now, in the event of going back to under-20, it takes away their exposure again. It takes them longer to develop, and I think if they bring it back to under-19, it's going to absolutely cripple it in that respect. That players are going to just be lost, forgotten about, and when they do come to fruition then, and a senior manager comes for them at 21 or 2, they'll have missed a year or two of proper intense training and intense quality of playing in big days and big occasions. So I think it's a big call now from the GA. They're going to have to get that right.
I think you can even see size-wise with the under-20s this year, they look a bit off, even more so than the senior grade. Just ask you about your own playing days with Tipperary as we look forward to the senior All-Ireland final as well. What would be your memories of playing with Tipperary? What stands out?
Well, I suppose what stands out for me is falling short too many occasions. I had a great time, great memories with Tipperary at senior level. I suppose around the All-Ireland final in '97, we played Clare twice in the Munster final and were beaten in the All-Ireland by a point. And then in 2001, I was part of the squad that beat Galway. So the hype was equally as big around the All-Ireland as it is now. But for me, I suppose playing for Tipperary, it was in an era as well. I suppose when you didn't get as many games, when you were beaten in the first round, you were gone, and that was it. So you didn't really get the exposure that's there now. Now there's a round robin, obviously, in Munster, and you have 5 or 6 games to get to an All-Ireland, so it's a lot more intense. But my memories were not only good. Probably lots of regrets too that a guy didn't maybe play on as well as he should have in his own career, and maybe had a little bit more longevity in the way in my career down that time. But then you had the likes of Owen Kelly and Larry Corbett and all them fellas coming behind you, and they were quick to step in when somebody like myself was found wanting. So it was competitive, and it's equally as competitive as it is now. Plenty of talent coming.
And I'm not sure if Tipp played Kilkenny in the championship around that time, but there was a big period where the teams didn't meet at all. Do you have any memories of playing them even in league?
Yeah, I do. I remember the league final in 2004. I think under Michael Doyle, we had Kilkenny just beaten in Croke Park, and Charlie Carter came on and got a goal, and they won the league final that year. Kilkenny DJ was playing as well, as far as I can remember. that wasn't really that was the only time. We used to have big crowds in Nolan Park and Thurles obviously around that time for league matches, but we never really got to bang heads or do battle properly in championship, like the current crop are doing now. But having said that, the banter was still always good along where I'm living in Ballingarry and on the Kilkenny border. It's fairly intense now at the moment, I can assure you that.
Yeah, because I mean, having spoken with your clubmate William Maher, who's my club manager with Coola at the moment, he often talks about that there's plenty of it flying in over the hedge as well. Just they would consider over the years that Kilkenny out-taught Tipperary as much as out-fought them as well. Would you have heard that?
Yeah, you would have had, like, I suppose the stats are there. Kilkenny have had the best of the results over the years. It's proven. They've beaten us, on a lot of occasions. But I wouldn't say maybe out-taught us as much as out-fought us. I think maybe they might have out-fought us more so than out-taught us down, and that would be something that would be hard to take when it's thrown at you from a Tip perspective that you were out-fought. And then again, margins were very close. There's a couple of All-Irelands we should have won as well, and just Lady Luck wasn't with us. So hopefully in 2 weeks' time all that will be put right.
How do you see this final going?
I see it being a 50-50 game as well, but I also think that we have the ability to get scores a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but I think we have the ability to get scores more so than Kilkenny up front. I think if our forward line open up the way they're capable of, I think our scores will come that little bit easier. Having said that, if Kilkenny bring what they brought to the Limerick game, it will make it very, very challenging for us. But I would be hopeful that we would be capable of winning the match, by 3 or 4 points when it comes down to the closing out of the game. That I'd like to think we'd be 3 or 4 ahead when it comes to the last few minutes. And
you would have shared a dressing room with Liam Sheedy as a player as well. Would you have had much interactions with him personally, or what was he like in the dressing room?
Yeah, Liam is, as a player, was everything he is as a manager as well. He was a brilliant team player. There was several teams that Liam wasn't on starting or was a sub on, and he was a brilliant guy in the dressing room to go around and motivate players, even though he wasn't maybe starting or coming on himself. So he always had that trait and that attribute to his style. But a brilliant, aggressive, tenacious player when he played. Often marked him in training, and we often had great battles in training. And
any sledging?
Oh, plenty of it. He often broke several nice hurleys on me from time to time, and often me as well. But no, he was a tough, honest, genuine Tipperary hurler, and he brings all of that onto his managerial side of it as well. In fairness to the man,
yeah, brilliant, great stuff, and best of luck in the final against Cork.
Thanks very much.